Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026, and this is a special meeting of the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board, as along with a public hearing. I hereby call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda will be the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand and join us. Thank you. Next, we're going to take a moment of silent reflection. And as we do, we ask that you keep the Mabel families in your thoughts, as they recently had a teacher that passed away, and we want to keep their school family in our thoughts as they go through this difficult time. Thank you. Next, we will move into our public hearing, which we need to make a motion for. Kim?
I move to convene public hearing.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. This will be by our CFO, Vaughn, yes?
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me today to discuss the proposed district's budget for fiscal year 2027. Today's presentation aligns with the district's strategic keystones of resources, but has broad implications across readiness and relationships as well. State statute requires that school districts propose an annual budget by July 5th each year and hold a public hearing and adopt the budget no later than July 15th. Tonight's presentation will allow us to meet the requirement to propose a budget by July 5th. First, I'll cover some general budget highlights. The district uses fund accounting and adopts budget for many different funds. Each fund has unique revenue sources and allowable uses. The district's largest funds are Maintenance and Operations, or M&O, which supports daily operating costs, peoples and programs, and Unrestricted Capital Outlay, which supports buildings, improvements, furniture, equipment, technology, and other items that will be in use longer than a year. Arizona School District's M&O budget is set by statutory formula that is regularly updated through the state's budgeting process. The formula is driven in large part by weighted student count, which considers average daily membership, or the number of full-time equivalent students served by the district, and student characteristics, such as special education status, to determine how much funding will be made available to the district to serve its students. Funding is also made available for transportation, which considers daily route miles driven to transport students to and from school. On this slide, you can see a year-over-year comparison of the budget available in M&O and its various sources. The proposed budget for fiscal year 2027 is based on a slight increase in student enrollment supported by the analysis provided by Applied Economics and the increase in per pupil funding that was recently passed in the state budget. Those factors are driving the $3.5 million increase in revenue control limit from the last revised budget from last year. The revenue control limit is the funding provided from the funding formula I described on the previous slide. It is the ongoing funding generated to support the district students. We will see in future budget revisions throughout the year that our revenue control limit estimates are updated with changes in student enrollment. The district is also seeing an increase in the value of the district's voter-approved M&O override. That is being driven in large part by the additional per-pupil funding passed by the state for this coming year. These increases are being partially offset by the increased resources being shifted to the Energy and Water Savings Fund. This is being driven by the district's work with Verigy in this coming year, and a reduction in resources that we anticipate carrying over into fiscal year 2027 compared to what we carried over into fiscal year 2026. It is important to note that while M&O overrides and funding made available through the funding formula are ongoing, the budget balance carry forward is part of the district's rainy day fund. It is only replenished by spending less than the district receives in ongoing funding and is not an ongoing annual revenue source. It's also important to note that the decrease we see here is based on our May budget revision, which was calculated assuming all encumbrances clear by the end of August. Each year, we typically see this figure increase as we update it to actual at our December revision. The district's M&O budget was developed considering guidance provided by the governing board at our March 5th governing board meeting, where the projected budget for fiscal year 2027 was approved. In fact, this proposed budget is simply reflecting the previous governing board direction on legal budget forms. It is important to remember that in the 2027 budget, we were working towards rebalancing ongoing expenditures to ongoing revenue, which is why you see a significant difference between the change in revenue control limit and override growth and the increase in projected spending on this slide. We typically see major enrollment after the 4th of July weekend, and we typically do not have great insight into where a majority of our spending will fall until staffing for the new year is more finalized. As a result, there's significant estimates in the proposed budget, and I will continue to provide updates to the governing board as we move forward and have more clear insight into what our budget and spending will truly look like. This slide shows the high-level overview of the M&O budget by functional program area, such as general education and special education, and also highlights the budgeted classroom spending percentage of 69.9% of dollars spent in the classroom. Looking at the M&O budget by type of spending, you can see that a great majority of the budget is between salaries, benefits, and purchase professional services, which includes contracted staffing. We did budget for the increase in utility spending that I showed on the previous slide. However, utility spending may be even higher in fiscal year 2027. We still do not have closure on the APS rate case that we've previously discussed during the budget process. There are hearings scheduled on the rate case through July 21st. I will continue to share information as we have it as that moves forward through that legal process. As a reminder, the Unrestricted Capital Outlay Fund supports construction, remodels of facilities, equipment, textbooks, and other items that will last the district longer than a year. Similar to the M&O Fund, unrestricted capital outlay resources are provided to the district via a statutory formula that considers average daily membership or full-time equivalent students served by the district and a funding amount per student. Unrestricted capital outlay considers a prior year student count when determining funding, unlike M&O, which considers current year membership. Here you can see a year-over-year comparison of the unrestricted capital outlay budget limit. Most of the decrease in funding is being caused by a potential decrease in carryover from 2026 to 2027. Similar to our work with M&O in 2027, there is need to work to prioritize and balance ongoing capital spending into the future. We plan to work with the Capital Committee during 2027 to begin this work. We also know that Prop 123 funding will continue into 2027 due to the passing of the state budget. However, this was not included in the forms published in time to be used for this budget proposal and adoption process. We will recognize this funding in our December budget revision. The unrestricted capital outlay budget is split fairly evenly between furniture, equipment, and vehicles, and textbooks, library books, and software. The remainder of the budget will be available for facilities improvements and replacements. The Classroom Site Fund was originally created due to a voter-approved sales tax for education in the early 2000s. After 20 years as a voter-approved initiative, the state legislature took action to continue the Classroom Site Fund as opposed to let it expire. The revenue districts receive from the Classroom Site Fund is driven by sales taxes the state collects related to the Classroom Site Fund, as well as certain state land trust transactions. Each year, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee publishes a per-student allocation for the Classroom Site Fund. Districts receive Classroom Site Fund monies on prior year student count, similar to unrestricted capital outlay. You can see that the district has allocated to receive a little bit over $10 million in the Classroom Site Fund revenues for 2027. The Classroom Site Fund is likely to play a more significant role in budget discussions as we look into 2028, as there is opportunity to capture the increase in funding we've seen in the fund based on increasing per-student allocations. This slide shows the specific ways the district currently utilizes the Classroom Site Fund for salaries and benefits, including base pay increases, performance pay for teachers, and instructional aids for schools, and a portion of our longevity stipend. The district has a number of other funds that are included in the budget, and I've highlighted a couple on the slide along with the district's plans for fiscal year 2027. I won't go through each, but I will pause for a moment just so you can take a peek. One of the reasons I like this slide so well is it also shows the source of the revenue, and it really does highlight the various different revenue sources that the school district receives different types of support from. All right. Now everyone's favorite topic, taxes. The district's M&O unrestricted capital outlay and adjacent ways budgets discussed tonight are funded in part by local property taxes. The state funding formula for education includes a qualifying tax rate, which sets a consistent starting point for the expected community support of school districts across the state. From that starting point, the levy, or total dollar amount expected to be collected in taxes from the primary tax rate, is adjusted based on certain local factors. Secondary tax rates are set to support voter-approved initiatives such as the district's M&O override and bond program. These two amounts, along with the community's assessed valuation, or the value of the taxable property in the district, set the tax rate. In total, the district's combined tax rate declined, or will decline as shown on the slide. For tax purposes, the state limits the increase individual homeowners experience in their valuation to 5% a year, based on the capped increase in valuation and the decline in tax rate. We estimate an individual taxpayer will see a 0.2% increase in their property tax from the district. This is just an estimate and could change based on property tax judgments that are pending at the county level and are outside control of the district. Also, this includes the adjacent ways levy the district is proposing to assist in the construction of Troy Gilbert Elementary. Adjacent ways allows the district to follow a process to levy additional taxes to pay for improvements that allow for the entry and exit of district facilities but are largely not on district property. We will be proposing a $1.5 million levy for 2027, down from $2 million in 2026 to allow us to finish the construction of Troy Gilbert Elementary. The district has advertised this tax levy and will hold a truth and taxation hearing in July to further discuss the adjacent ways levy. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you may have on the district's proposed budget for fiscal year 2027.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions or comments?
I do not have any questions, thank you.
Mr. Owens?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Moran?
I do have some questions.
I want to start with the maintenance and operation budget limit year over year comparison slide. So I just kind of want to recap, maybe in plainer English, kind of what this is saying. So you're saying that the reason that the proposed budget is higher this year is because there was an increase in the per pupil funding from the state. That's one factor. And the other is we're using the projected enrollment data that we were previously provided. Anything else going into that 3.5 million that's significant?
Not really, no. There's a lot of sub-steps in that calculation, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to number of weighted students. So that's special ed component as well, multiplied by that per pupil funding amount.
Okay. And then the next line, which is the 15%, is literally just the math on we're only allowed to spend, because it's called an override, we're only allowed to spend 15% of the revenue control limit. So that's always going to just be straight up.
That calculation is just a formula. It is an interesting formula because it uses prior year student counts with current year weights and per pupil dollar amounts. And so it is just a formula, but it's a strange calculation because it mixes the concept of current year funding with prior year funding.
Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned, you talked a little bit about the budget carry forward number and why we're seeing a big difference in that, but can we talk about that a little bit more? Sure. Obviously, that is a large decrease. So tell me more about that, how accurate you think that number is, what are the things that are potentially going to go into that could change it either favorably or unfavorably?
Yeah, so we are expecting our carryover to decline. And that is because, as we talked about in our budget process, we are spending more than we're bringing in. And so that does cause a decline in the M&O carry forward. How that specific number was calculated was the same as we saw on our May budget revision, which, if you'll recall, what we did is we took all the encumbrances, which is a fancy way of saying any order or promise to pay that we've put out in the world, assuming all of those come to fruition and we pay them all out. And so that's why I was sharing, I would be amazed if that dollar amount doesn't increase back up in our December revision, because every year we have encumbrances that don't clear. And the reason for that is a couple of things. We only pay in this fiscal year what is actually completed by June 30th. And so we do have summer work that splits that. And so if something happens after July 1st, then it has to go in the new year. If it happens before June 30th, it has to go in the current year or old year, depending on what language you're using. But we also have certain instances, and not all of them were easy enough to back out, where we will put in a purchase order to purchase something that we know will roll out into the next year, but there's just such a lead time that you have to get that order in before we're able to put out a purchase order in the new year. And so I can't really say how much it'll increase, but there's a almost 99% chance that it will increase by a decent amount.
Okay, so I know that this topic of the budget carry forward, which essentially is a portion of the rainy day fund in general, is something that we've talked about a lot as a board, and during this whole budget process, we talk about it every year, but we talked about it a lot this year because we had cuts that we were going to make. So I just want to make sure, and I want to take this opportunity to make sure that again, we are going to have the opportunity as a board and as a cabinet to have thoughtful conversations on what the potential levers can and should look like and the impact of those going forward. So this past, when we talked about the budget, and again, this is really related to this budget carry forward, we know that that's not a recurring revenue source, as you've said. So when we spend this down, it's difficult to get it back up. We're not in the danger zone, we're all within our guidelines and everything. However, we do want to be cautious if we continue to make budget cuts that need to be made, that we're on the conservative end of that if we're not on the aggressive end of that. So what I would like to formally request is that we have a either study session or in one of our board retreats to look at the data behind the 5 levers. So look at the data behind salaries and benefits, class sizes, campus supports, as well as campus efficiencies and economies of scale, and enrollment. Those are really kind of, I think at this point, are 5 controllables, and I think one of the issues with the way the budget conversation went in March that could have been done better, and I think, we're always talking about continuous improvement, right? Is we were told, here's your levers and here's the dollar amounts associated with those, but we weren't told, this is how that translates to the classroom. This is how that translates to our teachers. This is how that translates to our goals and our keystones, and how does that relate to the Litchfield learners and our Litchfield leaders and all of those things. And so I would like us to have some proactive conversations so that as a board, we can better understand not only the dollar impact of those potential changes, but also we can better educate ourselves on the pros and cons behind those, because we're not classroom teachers. For example, we know that there are studies out there, and maybe these are outdated, maybe they're not, maybe there's new things out there, I don't know, about class size. And unless you can decrease your class size a significant amount from where we currently are, it's not as impactful as it could be. But that doesn't mean that increasing the class size 2 or 3 is also not impactful. It doesn't mean if you're over that number, more is better or more is fine or there is no difference. So those are the things that I feel like I was missing as a board member to make these decisions. And I think there's probably members of our cabinet, members of, principals, campus leaders who have thoughts on all of these things, and I would like to know more about what their thoughts are and how we can better serve them while also balancing this budget. So that is kind of overall, when I look at these numbers, when I look at the carryover or the carry forward specifically, I know we talked about it, it's not a surprise, yet seeing it in reality, knowing this is definitely a worst case scenario, right? We expect the December revision is gonna look better than this, but the fact that we now are where we are, again, I think for that continuous improvement, we need to have those proactive discussions, and everyone will come to the table then better educated and have a better comprehension of what those changes actually mean, in addition to the budget impact that they might have. My next question is going to be on the next slide, which is on the budget initiatives that we talked about. So the utilities increase, I know we talked about this increase, but is this a projected increase? You mentioned it a little bit as well during your presentation. You anticipate this is going to be higher potentially? I mean, tell me more about that part of it, because I feel like we have no control over this.
We
and so
don't.
It feels very unfair.
Yeah, I agree. So I took that slide, if you think back to our projected budget, I took those figures directly off of the projected budget. You know how we start with the baseline expenditures and then we add things. And so that $410,000 was the estimate of what utilities will increase by. And it, I believe, captures some of the impact of what's possible under the APS rate case, because the percentage I was seeing year over year was significant. I don't exactly remember what percentage it was, but I do remember it was substantially lower than what is proposed in the APS rate case, which is a 14% increase. But we don't have clarity at this point on if APS is going to get that full rate increase, or if they're going to get a lesser rate increase, or if they're not going to get a rate increase. Utility rate cases follow a complicated process in Arizona through the Arizona Corporation Commission, and they have, and it goes through an administrative law judge, and they have hearings on APS's rate case scheduled already through the end of July, and so we won't have full clarity until, I don't want to say well within the fiscal year, but certainly until after the fiscal year has begun, and potentially even until after our first day of school. And so to your point of we don't have much control over that, I certainly agree. I do think we've done everything we possibly can through our work with Verigy to try to protect ourselves from this rate increase and future rate increases, but that's certainly not to say that it won't have a dramatic impact on us.
So tell me this, we've done the work with Verigy, people are seeing we've got more solar, we've got, these things out there that should be helping us. So is it fair to say that without those improvements, this number would be even higher as far as like the increase that we would see with utilities?
Yes, I don't have a good estimate of truly what the end impact will be on our utility bills because of the Verigy work. When we worked with them, what they essentially said was continue planning utility costs increases if we didn't do this project. And part of the reason they said that is the savings aren't intended to be savings for the first 20 so years. It's intended to pay off the costs of doing those projects. And so for the first very long time, you're not really meant to capture those savings. You capture them in terms of you got work done on your schools that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get done. But certainly, we will have less electric use due to the solar panels and due to the improvements to the campuses than if we hadn't done that work.
Okay. And then, the next line, which is the SPED spending, we say projected increase. Tell me a little bit more about what that projection is based on and if you have any crystal ball about that.
I certainly don't have a crystal ball. That number is calculated strictly based on the trend that we've seen in special ed spending. And so that number is not based on any planned spending. It's based on the year-over-year trend.
Okay.
And so when I incorporated that estimate into our budgeting process last year or the year before, we had a good deal of discussion about it where I wasn't confident that it wasn't too high, and then it ended up not being high enough. And so what I've learned about that estimate is it's just as likely that it's high as it's just as likely that it's low.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is another area that I want to highlight because, one of Dr. Davidson's goals was our special ed department, and we've had some really great changes in that, but I think based on the projected year-over-year numbers, we've got to do more in that area. So I would potentially like to discuss this as being, continuing to be part of your goals potentially for next year. Again, based on, there's other things outside of it, but based on the budgetary impact alone, it's pretty major there. Let me see what my...
Ms. Moran, if I could
Yes.
add, please,
Yeah.
and I would just highlight, obviously, that this budget is a living document, right? We know it's going to transition and change over time, but in regards to the special education piece, you nailed it. There was a tremendous amount of work done in that arena this year, and we will have some ROI. We will have some numbers attached to that as we begin moving forward and seeing how those changes impacted us. But I would also add this is an example of where we are going to do what it takes to meet the needs of our kids, despite the budgetary hit, and we'll continue to monitor that throughout. So thank you for your comments, though.
Of course. My other question, CFO Vaughn, is on the unrestricted capital outlay year-over-year comparison. Can you just explain a little bit more about the change in the budget carryover there? Because usually in this section, we just don't see very much activity at all with this. So I believe you said we're going to proactively start doing more maintenance, but tell me more if that's accurate, or tell me more about what might be planned for that.
Yeah, so this year in particular, this isn't the only driver, but it is a substantial one. We saw an opportunity to save some by prepaying for multiple years some of our larger capital purchases. And so we did, or when we present the AFR, you will see that we spent several $1,000,000 more in unrestricted capital outlay than we brought in. You will see, though, on this slide that there is a substantial carryover there. And so it's one of the reasons that we felt comfortable doing so, that and the savings we would see. But what we're really trying to make sure of in the capital fund and working with the capital committee to try to do that prioritization, or at least start it this year, is to ensure that we aren't setting district standards or otherwise starting down paths that we can't sustain into the future. I think that first line on this slide is actually really telling, where you see that our district additional assistance declined, not dramatically, but it declined $25,000. And I will say that that's a very strong estimate because unrestricted capital outlay is based on prior year student count as opposed to current year student count. So I don't anticipate seeing a major change in that number. So we've lost almost $26,000 in revenue, in ongoing revenue year over year. But if you think about the inflation of the costs that we see, especially in construction and technology, staying flat is a problem because the ongoing costs of maintaining what we've done from a capital perspective is dramatically growing, and our revenue is staying flat or declining. So that really is a problem. We are helped by the fact that we have our bond program, and so one of the decisions that our capital committee made recently as it regards to 2027 is anything that we were able to shift to the bond program, especially around the facilities capital budget, we're doing so for 2027. But what I try to do from a philosophical finance perspective is I like to match our ongoing capital costs with our ongoing capital revenue so that we don't end up in a scenario where we have to cut or change paths. And shifting ongoing facility capital costs to the bond is quite a bit of evidence that you're not being sustainable, but my hope is that it gives us some time to work through that problem. Does that
Yes, yeah.
make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. And I think, personally, and I think the board has always been in favor of staying up on the maintenance, and we want our campuses to look nice, be safe for all of our students. And so I think that is favorable overall. My last comment is on the tax rates themselves, and I just want to say, to me, a rounded down to 0% change is a win. So I will take that. And I hope that we don't get many complaints about this. And I think we've done a good job managing the impact on our taxpayers.
I don't have any questions. I feel like you addressed all of the things that Ms. Moran brought up, and we've been talking about this a ton, so I feel pretty good about what you're presenting. So with that, do we have to move out of our public hearing, right?
So I'll move to convene public hearing.
Adjourn.
Just says motion to convene. So I move to adjourn
Do we, yeah, okay, adjourn the public hearing. Okay.
public hearing.
I will second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Moran, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Next, we have no public comment, so we will move on to our adoption of agenda and consideration of consent agenda. Ms. Wallace, did you have anything you wish to pull from consent?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Owens?
None from me, thanks.
Ms. Moran?
None from me.
I don't have any either, if someone wants to make a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Okay, we will move on to our action items. We'll start with the approval of the proposed fiscal year 2027 annual expenditure budget by CFO Vaughn. We'll just go right back to it.
I'm available to answer any other questions you might have.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any more questions?
I did not, thank you.
Mr. Owens?
I did not. I appreciated Board Member Moran's questions, so that was very helpful, but clear presentation.
Ms. Moran?
I have not come up with any more questions in the last 2 minutes, so all good.
Me either. No additional questions. I think we got it covered. So if someone wants to make a motion.
I will move to approve the proposed fiscal year 2027 annual expenditure budget as presented.
I second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Okay, next we will move on to the superintendent performance pay. I guess this will be by Dr. Davidson and myself.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This agenda item is connected to the evaluation that we had just last week, I believe, and just wanted to say thank you for all board members for participating in that and providing feedback and using the new evaluation tool and process. So very meaningful, and I look forward to bringing some future goals based on those conversations to the table in the near future. With that said, part of the evaluation is also connected to performance and performance pay. So tonight I simply ask our board to consider the amount that was decided, and that's also in the executive content, to be approved tonight for performance pay. And I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions or comments?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Owens?
And none from me, thanks.
Ms. Moran?
None from me. The math is mathing.
No questions for me either. Thank you, everybody, though, for all of the work that you did for the evaluation last week. And I did appreciate our new tool, so thank you to our board members that put that together along with Dr. Benjamin. With that, if someone would like to make a motion.
I will move to approve the superintendent performance pay for the 25-26 school year.
I second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. I also bet that Mr. Mikes would be a yay, but he's not here today. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. And moving on, we will discuss consideration to approve the pro statement for the M&O override election to be held this year. This will be by CFO Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me today to discuss and potentially approve the Governing Board's pro statement for the upcoming M&O override election. As part of the process of conducting an M&O override election, school district governing boards are required to submit a pro statement for the voter pamphlet. Pro statements are due to Maricopa County elections by August 7th. The attached pro statement is very similar to the one that has been used in the past. We're certainly open for revision and discussion of the letter as the board desires. I'm available to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions or comments?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I have no questions, and I don't think it's, I don't want to wordsmith it. I think it's clear. It's convincing. I think it spells it out. There's always confusion over overrides, unfortunately, and so hopefully this will sway some people who don't know what they're doing or don't have their mind made up. But I think this is good as presented.
Ms. Moran?
I agree. I don't have any suggestions for changes.
I also have no questions or comments. I think that it is great the way it is. So if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the pro statement for the maintenance and operations override election for November 3rd, 2026, as presented.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Owens, I will call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to out-of-state travel request for our communications generalist. This will be by Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, Madam President, and members of the board. This was actually given to us through Ms. Amorano, our Director of Communications. She was not able to attend tonight, and so I offered to certainly answer any questions the board may have regarding this possible travel piece. This was submitted on behalf of our new generalist who will be serving alongside Ms. Amorano. This was an opportunity afforded to that individual prior to coming to us, and we felt like it would be wise for us to continue that professional development experience, knowing that our director and generalist went last year to this conference. This is the national conference for school public relations professionals, and certainly I'll stand for any questions.
Ms. Wallace?
Is this Yardley that would be going, or someone else?
No,
Just
ma'am,
to-
it's the person that will be backfilling Yardley's spot.
Gotcha. Yardley went last year, you were
Yes, ma'am.
saying. Okay. I don't have any questions.
Mr. Owens?
It sounds like we have kind of a precedence of attendance. Obviously this was presented to you and you felt like it was appropriate to present to us, so I'm fine with it if you are.
Ms. Moran?
I'm fine with this, but it seems unusual. So you're saying that the person that we're hiring, this person who is going to this conference, is not yet an employee?
No, ma'am, we did approve her hire.
Okay, so the name TBD, there is a name that we can put in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that person started when with us?
I don't believe she has started officially. I believe, though, she was hired, though, via our board recommendation.
Okay.
July 1, Ms. Satterfield, is that correct?
July 1 is
July
when
1.
she will start. Okay, or when he or she will start. And this person was already set to go to this conference in their previous position.
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think that's a pretty important, I know you mentioned that, but that is a pretty important detail, I think, of this. Because I don't know, as someone who's not sure of the qualifications of a communications generalist, if this is someone who is coming into this job with experience or no experience. Obviously, if you had little to no experience and you're going to a national seminar, that might not be quite so helpful. So, okay, those are really all of my questions regarding that.
I have no questions. I like that we give opportunities like this to our staff when we are able to. Obviously, we want to do it within reason, but I think that it's good for us to learn from others. So I don't have any questions or concerns. If somebody would like to make a motion?
I will move to approve the out-of-state travel request for communications generalists to travel to the NSPRA conference in New Orleans as presented.
I will second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Moran, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Okay, we will move on to the IGA between LESD 79 and the City of Litchfield Park. This will be by CFO Vaughn and Dr. Stone.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me today to discuss and potentially approve a lease between Litchfield Elementary School District and the City of Litchfield Park. The lease is for excess property around the district office along Sagebrush Street. The city is hoping to use the area as a temporary public works facility while their new facility is being constructed. The terms of the lease include a $25,000 per year rent and an option for a 2-year term. The rental rate was reached upon mutual agreement between the district and the city and was based on a broker's analysis of fair market rent of the property. Dr. Stone and I are available to answer any questions you may have on this potential lease at this time.
Ms. Wallace?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I think it's a good partnership with the city, and fair market value sounds good, so yeah.
Ms. Moran?
I do have a couple questions. So, what is this going to look like? Is it going to be like a chain link fenced in area with like pods with heavy equipment? Like, this is obviously Litchfield's in a residential area here, close to the resort. All that, it's a very nice neighborhood. Just curious about what our neighbors are going to see in this area.
Great question. So it's already fenced in. It's right here located next to the baseball fields, just west of it. They will have like a construction trailer, some vehicles, mounds of dirt.
Is it where the snack shack used to be? The baseball
Yeah.
thing? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it won't look very different, we don't think, from what it looks like today.
You might see a structure above the fence line, maybe a backhoe or a tractor or a truck, but nothing different than what's just down the road on the south.
Okay.
Just not a block wall fence showing it off.
Okay. And then do you foresee, or can we be ensured there won't be any impact to pickup or drop-offs if they're trying to get a piece of equipment out of this area or something? Are they aware, or would they be aware of our hot times and all that?
Yes, ma'am. They're very aware of our pickup and drop-off times. Hopefully their work starts before that. The afternoon, they'll have to make sure they monitor that because it's the same residents that they serve, and so we will continue to work together to ensure that there are minimal distractions from that.
Okay. My only concerns were just about our parents and our families understand the impact on our students and, of course, their safety as well. So, okay, otherwise, yeah, I'm all for more revenue, so let's do it.
I don't have any questions. Dr. Davidson, did you have something? No? Okay, I don't have any questions. I just want to say I appreciate the way that we are looking at new ways to bring in revenue and that we're just constantly trying to think outside the box and do what's best for this district. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think this is a great partnership with this community. So thank you.
President Zeidman, if I could, just to go back to Ms. Moran's question there. Mr. Williams, city manager of Litchfield Park, is also one of our parents. He has a student here at Litchfield L as well as a student at Dreaming Summit. So I have no doubt that he'll work alongside us to ensure that our families have the best route and the most timely route to pick up their children. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, if someone would like to make a motion.
I will move to approve the intergovernmental agreement between LESD 79 and the City of Litchfield Park as presented.
I second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Wallace, I will call for vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes.
Move to adjourn.
You're very
I will
fast.
second.
That was very
That was
quick.
quick.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Moran, I'll call for a vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks for joining us, everyone.